Enjoying the $5,000 a month, Mom? My son Ryan asked with a warm smile as he wrapped his arms around me in the middle of his Christmas party. And for a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard him. The music was playing softly from hidden speakers. Children were laughing near the giant Christmas tree, and snow drifted gently past the tall windows of his beautiful home. Everything looked like a scene from a holiday movie. Ryan pulled back and raised his glass. "You deserve every penny," he said. Several guests smiled. A few even nodded. My heart skipped a beat. "What $5,000? I asked. The words came out quietly, but they seemed louder than the Christmas music. Ryan laughed at first, assuming I was joking. "The $5,000 I've been sending you every month," he said. "Come on, Mom. Don't tell me you're still saving it all." The smile slowly disappeared from my face. Across the room, my daughter-in-law Vanessa nearly dropped the glass she was holding. It was only a small movement. Most people would never have noticed it. But I did. For a brief second, the color drained from her face before she quickly recovered and forced a smile. "Ryan," she interrupted, "your uncle wanted to talk about the new business expansion." Her voice sounded light, but there was tension hiding underneath it. Ryan barely looked at her. His attention remained fixed on me. "Mom," he asked, "you are getting the money, right?" I stared at him. $5,000 a month. The number echoed inside my head. $5,000. Every month. I was 71 years old. I lived alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. The radiator rattled every winter. Last month I delayed replacing my glasses because the cost seemed too high. I clipped grocery coupons from newspapers and compared prices down to the last few cents. Some nights I sat at my kitchen table calculating whether I should refill one prescription immediately or wait another week. If someone had been sending me $5,000 every month, I certainly would have noticed. "Ryan," I said carefully, "I have never received any money from you." The room suddenly felt colder. My son blinked several times. "That can't be right." Vanessa stepped closer. "Maybe there's some misunderstanding," she said quickly. Perhaps she forgot about the transfers. Forgot. The word landed heavily in my chest. I looked directly at her. "I may be 71, I said calmly, "but I would remember receiving $5,000 every month." Ryan's expression changed. The confusion in his eyes was slowly being replaced by concern. "Mom," he said, lowering his voice, "I set it up 4 years ago. Automatic monthly transfers. I wanted you to be comfortable." For years, the number hit me even harder than the amount itself. For years of struggling. For years of wondering if I should ask for help, but deciding not to burden my successful son. For years during which he apparently believed he had already been helping me. Around us, the Christmas party continued, but it felt distant now. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses. Everything seemed far away. Ryan reached for his phone. Vanessa immediately placed a hand on his arm. "This really isn't the time," she said. He gently moved her hand aside. "Actually," he replied, "I think it is." I watched her face carefully. It was only for a moment, but I saw something there. Fear. Real fear. And in that instant, standing beneath the glow of Christmas lights while snow fell outside, I realized that someone had been hiding a secret from both of us. I didn't yet know where the money had gone. I didn't know who had taken it. But as Ryan opened his banking app and Vanessa suddenly looked toward the front door, as if considering an early departure, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The perfect Christmas party was over, and the truth was finally beginning to surface. Ryan did not say another word for several seconds. The glow from the Christmas tree reflected off the screen of his phone as he stared at the banking records. I watched his eyes move from line to line. His jaw tightened. Vanessa stood beside him, perfectly still, holding her wine glass with both hands. Around us, family members continued chatting, unaware that something important had just shifted beneath the surface of the evening. I suddenly felt tired. Not the kind of tired that comes after a long day. The kind that settles into your bones after years of carrying worries alone. For years, I could not stop thinking about that number. 4 years earlier, I had been sitting in a hospital waiting room after a routine heart checkup. The doctor had assured me everything looked stable, but he had recommended a new medication that my insurance barely covered. I remember sitting in my car afterward, staring at the estimate and wondering where I would find the extra money. In the end, I made adjustments. I always did. I stopped eating out entirely. I canceled a few subscriptions. I postponed replacing my old refrigerator even though it rattled loudly every night. The same refrigerator was still sitting in my kitchen today. During those years, I never once called Ryan asking for financial help. He worked hard. He had built an impressive company from the ground up. I was proud of him. I wanted him to enjoy the success he had earned. Whenever he asked how I was doing, I always answered the same way. I'm doing fine, sweetheart. It was easier than explaining everything. Easier than admitting that some months felt longer than others. Easier than saying that loneliness often weighed more than the bills. Ryan finally looked up from his phone. There was confusion in his eyes, but something else too. Concern. Genuine concern. Mom, he said quietly. These transfers were never missed. Every month. Same date. I nodded slowly. Then somebody has been receiving them. Vanessa immediately stepped forward. There could be an administrative error, she said. Banks make mistakes all the time. Her smile appeared polished, but it did not reach her eyes. Ryan glanced at her. For 4 years, he asked. She opened her mouth, but did not answer right away. That silence felt louder than anything she could have said. I found myself studying her face. Over the years, I had worked very hard to like Vanessa. She was intelligent, organized, and always seemed to know exactly what needed to be done. Family vacations, holiday dinners, birthday plans, everything flowed through her. Looking back, I realized there had been something else. 2. Information flowed through her as well. Invitations, messages, financial discussions. Even simple conversations often passed through Vanessa before they reached anyone else. At the time, I thought she was being helpful. Standing there now, I remembered little moments I had ignored. A birthday card Ryan claimed he mailed that never arrived. A package he insisted had been delivered. An invitation to a company event that I only learned about weeks later. Individually, none of those things seemed important. Together, they formed a pattern I could no longer ignore. Ryan slipped his phone back into his pocket. I am going to look into this, he said firmly. Vanessa forced a laugh. Tonight is Christmas Eve. Can we please not turn this into an investigation? Ryan did not smile. If my mother never received money I thought she was getting, then it already is an investigation. The room suddenly felt smaller. The Christmas music continued playing softly in the background, but nobody near us seemed interested in the holiday spirit anymore. I glanced toward the large window overlooking the backyard. Snow continued falling in slow, peaceful waves. Everything outside looked calm. Everything inside felt different. Then Ryan's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, frowned, and immediately opened a message. His expression changed almost instantly. He looked from the phone to Vanessa and then back again. That is strange, he murmured. What is it? I asked. Ryan hesitated. The account receiving the transfers is not under your name, Mom. For a moment, nobody spoke. Ryan looked down at the screen again, as if he hoped the information would somehow change. It did not. Vanessa folded her arms across her chest and stared toward the fireplace. Her expression remained calm, but there was a stiffness in her posture that had not been there earlier. Whose account is it? I asked quietly. Ryan did not answer immediately. He tapped through several screens, reading details I could not see. The seconds stretched uncomfortably. Around us, relatives continued enjoying the party, completely unaware that a different conversation was unfolding only a few feet away. Finally, Ryan lifted his eyes. I only have a partial account description here, he said. The full records are stored in the company payment system. Vanessa immediately nodded. There you go. It is probably just a bookkeeping issue. Her voice sounded too quick, too eager. Ryan frowned. A bookkeeping issue that lasted for years. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I noticed her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. It was such a small detail, but once I saw it, I could not stop noticing similar things. The way she avoided looking directly at Ryan. The way she kept checking her phone. The way she seemed anxious for the conversation to end. A strange feeling settled over me. Not anger. Not yet. It felt more like clarity, as though a fog that had surrounded certain memories was finally beginning to lift. I thought back to countless family gatherings over the years. Birthdays, Thanksgivings, Christmas mornings. There had always been small explanations for everything. Ryan was busy. Ryan had a meeting. Ryan thought I already knew. Ryan assumed someone had called me. Most of those explanations had come from Vanessa. At the time, I accepted them because they sounded reasonable. Tonight, for the first time, I wondered how many of them had actually been true. Ryan slipped his phone into his pocket. Tomorrow morning, I am calling the finance department, he said. I want every transfer record. Vanessa forced a smile. Tomorrow is Christmas. Exactly, Ryan replied. Which makes this even worse. His answer surprised me. My son had always hated conflict. Even as a child, he preferred solving problems quietly rather than confronting them directly. Yet now I could see determination growing behind his eyes. He wanted answers. The same answers I wanted. One of Ryan's business partners approached and began discussing holiday travel plans. Ryan responded politely, but I could tell his attention was elsewhere. Mine was too. A few minutes later, I stepped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner near the dining room window. Outside, fresh snow covered the backyard in a smooth, white blanket. Everything looked peaceful. I wished I felt the same. Instead, my thoughts kept returning to the missing money. $5,000 a month. $60,000 a year. For years, the total was so large that I almost could not process it. Not because I felt entitled to it, but because of what it represented. My son had believed he was taking care of me all this time. Meanwhile, I had spent years believing I was protecting him from my struggles by keeping them private. Both of us had been living inside completely different versions of reality. The realization hurt more than I expected. A shadow appeared beside me. Ryan. He handed me a cup of hot chocolate and sat down across from me. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then he quietly said, Mom, if you were having a hard time, why did you never tell me? I looked into the steaming cup. Because I thought you had your own life to worry about. Ryan shook his head slowly. You are my mother. His voice cracked slightly. I thought I was helping. Before I could answer, his phone vibrated again. He glanced at the message, and the color immediately drained from his face. What is it? I asked. Ryan stared at the screen for several long seconds before whispering. The finance director just replied. He sent me the name attached to the account. Ryan lowered the phone slowly. For the first time that evening, he looked completely shaken. I had seen my son handle business crises, difficult negotiations, and major company decisions with remarkable composure. This was different. Whatever he had just read had reached a place far deeper than professional concern. Ryan, I said gently, whose name is on the account? He looked at me, then toward the crowded living room where Christmas music still played and relatives continued laughing near the dessert table. The contrast felt almost surreal. A few feet away, people were discussing holiday recipes and travel plans. Here, an entirely different reality was unfolding. I need to verify it before I say anything, Ryan replied quietly. His voice was controlled, but I could hear tension underneath it. The finance director only sent a summary. I want the full records. Vanessa appeared beside us almost immediately. It was as though she had been watching from a distance the entire time. This is getting blown out of proportion, she said with a nervous laugh. A name on a report does not prove anything. Ryan folded his arms. I did not say it proved anything. Then why are we acting like there is some huge scandal? She asked. Nobody answered. The silence lingered between us. Vanessa looked away first. I watched her walk toward the kitchen and disappear into the crowd. Something about her reaction unsettled me more than any document could. People who have nothing to hide usually want answers. Vanessa seemed desperate to avoid them. A little later, guests began saying their goodbyes. Families gathered coats. Children carried new toys through the foyer, and cars slowly pulled away into the snowy night. By 10 o'clock, the house had become much quieter. Ryan insisted on driving me home despite my objections. During the 30-minute drive, neither of us spoke much. Snowflakes drifted through the headlights in steady waves. Finally, halfway to my apartment, Ryan broke the silence. Mom, there is something I have been thinking about. I turned toward him. What is it? He kept his eyes on the road. 4 years ago, when I set up those payments, Vanessa offered to help coordinate everything. My stomach tightened slightly. Ryan continued. I was traveling constantly back then, expanding the company, meeting investors. She handled a lot of personal paperwork. The words hung in the air. Neither of us rushed to finish the thought. When we arrived at my apartment building, Ryan walked me to the front door. The hallway smelled faintly of pine cleaner and old carpeting. It was familiar, modest, home. Before leaving, he hugged me. I am sorry, he said quietly. For what? I asked. For not knowing. I squeezed his hand. Neither of us knew. After he left, I sat alone at my kitchen table. The apartment was silent except for the hum of my aging refrigerator. I looked around the room. The worn curtains, the repaired chair, the stack of grocery coupons beside the fruit bowl. For years, I had accepted this life without complaint because I believed it was simply the reality I needed to manage. Now everything felt different, not because I suddenly expected luxury, but because I realized the struggle had never been necessary. Someone had made choices that affected both Ryan and me. Someone had allowed a misunderstanding to continue month after month, year after year. Just after midnight, my phone vibrated. A message from Ryan appeared on the screen. Only one sentence. "Mom, I have the complete records now." My heart began to pound. A second message appeared almost immediately afterward. "The account owner is someone we both know very well." I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same message glowing on my phone screen. "Someone we both know very well." The words followed me into the early hours of the morning. Around 6 o'clock, I gave up trying to sleep and made a cup of coffee. The apartment was quiet. Outside, the snow from Christmas Eve still covered the sidewalks and parked cars. Normally, Christmas morning brought a sense of comfort. This year felt different. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the steam rising from my mug when my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Are you awake?" he asked. "I have been awake for hours." There was a pause. "Can I come over?" "Of course." 40 minutes later, I heard a knock at my door. Ryan stepped inside carrying a folder and a laptop bag. The expression on his face told me everything before he said a single word. He looked exhausted. We sat at the kitchen table together. The same table where I paid bills, clipped coupons, and balanced my monthly budget. Ryan opened the folder slowly. "I spent half the night reviewing records," he said. "I called the finance director, the payroll manager, and the bank representative." My stomach tightened. "And?" Ryan took a deep breath. "The account receiving the money belongs to Vanessa." The room became completely silent. I looked down at my hands resting on the table. For a strange moment, I felt almost nothing. No shock, no anger, just stillness. Perhaps because part of me had already suspected the answer. Ryan continued speaking. "The transfers started 4 years ago exactly as I requested. Every month, $5,000. But the destination account listed in the company records was changed before the first payment was sent." I looked up. "Changed by who?" Ryan swallowed hard. "The authorization came from my personal family administration file." "What does that mean?" "It means someone with access to my personal financial documents submitted the change." Neither of us said her name. We did not have to. Ryan opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. Rows of transactions filled the display. Month after month, year after year, the same amount, the same account. The total was staggering. $240,000. I stared at the number for a long time. Not because I was thinking about the money itself. I was thinking about everything that happened during those 4 years. The prescriptions I postponed. The repairs I could not afford. The holidays when I told Ryan everything was fine because I believed he had enough responsibilities already. Meanwhile, he believed he was helping me all along. Ryan leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. "I keep replaying everything in my mind," he said quietly. "Every conversation. Every time Vanessa told me you said you were doing great. Every time she said you thanked me for helping." My head lifted sharply. "She told you that?" Ryan nodded. "More than once." A cold feeling settled in my chest. Suddenly, dozens of small memories began connecting together. Little comments, strange misunderstandings, missing messages, conversations that never happened, information that always seemed to pass through Vanessa first. It was like looking at a puzzle after finally finding the missing pieces. Ryan closed the laptop. "There is something else." His voice sounded even heavier now. "The account statements show where much of the money went." I looked at him carefully. "What do you mean?" He slid another document across the table. "Luxury purchases, vacation expenses, personal investments." My eyes moved across the page. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Ryan stared at the wall for several seconds before speaking again. "Mom, I do not think this was a mistake." Ryan's words lingered in the air long after he stopped speaking. I looked down at the stack of documents. Spread across my kitchen table. Receipts, transfer records, investment summaries. None of them looked dramatic. They were just ordinary pieces of paper. Yet together they told a story that neither of us had known we were living. I slowly turned another page. There were payments for luxury resorts, designer handbags, exclusive memberships, and investment accounts. The dates stretched back year after year, month after month. Every entry seemed to represent a decision, a choice. Ryan sat quietly across from me. He no longer looked angry. He looked heartbroken. That somehow felt worse. I trusted her, he finally said. His voice was barely above a whisper. I trusted her with everything. I nodded slowly. Trust was not something you could measure on a bank statement. Yet its absence filled the room more than any dollar amount ever could. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed softly in the background. Outside, a snowplow moved down the street. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary moments. Yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. Ryan eventually picked up one of the reports. There is another thing I found. I looked at him. What is it? He hesitated. Some of the account notes mentioned conversations that never happened. My brow furrowed. What do you mean? He slid the document toward me. Several entries included comments attached to payment authorizations. According to the records, I had supposedly requested that the transfers remain private. Another note claimed I preferred not discussing financial support with extended family. Another stated that I was grateful for the arrangement and wished to avoid direct deposits under my own name. I stared at the page in disbelief. I never said any of these things. I know, Ryan replied. Because the notes were not written by you. A chill moved through me despite the warmth of the apartment. Someone had not only redirected the money. Someone had built an entire narrative around the deception. A version of me that did not exist. A version that conveniently prevented questions from being asked. Ryan leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. Every time I checked in about the transfers, I was told everything was working perfectly. By Vanessa? He nodded. Every single time. Memories continued surfacing. Small moments I had ignored for years. Times when Ryan seemed oddly reassured after conversations I never remembered having. Occasions when he thanked me for understanding situations I knew nothing about. At the time, I assumed I had forgotten something. Now I realized something very different had happened. My phone suddenly vibrated on the table. The screen lit up with a text message. Vanessa. I had not heard from her since Christmas Eve. My stomach tightened as I opened it. The message was brief. I think there has been a misunderstanding. We should all talk before anyone jumps to conclusions. I read it twice before setting the phone down. Ryan stared at the screen. A misunderstanding, he repeated quietly. Neither of us believed that anymore. Not after the documents. Not after the records. Not after 4 years. Ryan picked up his coat and stood. She wants to talk tonight. Are you going? I asked. He looked out the window at the snow-covered parking lot below. Yes, he said finally. But not alone. I felt my heart begin to beat faster. Something told me the conversation ahead would change more than just a marriage. Ryan reached for the folder and gathered every document carefully. Then he looked at me with an expression I had not seen since he was a little boy facing something difficult. Mom, he said quietly, there is one thing I still do not understand. What is that? His eyes met mine. If she was willing to hide this for 4 years, what else has she been hiding? That afternoon passed more slowly than any day I could remember. Ryan left my apartment carrying the folder of records, but the weight he carried was far heavier than paper. After he drove away, I found myself standing by the window for a long time, watching the gray winter sky settle over the city. My phone remained silent. Vanessa did not send another message. Somehow that silence felt deliberate, like the calm before a storm. Around 5 o'clock, Ryan called. His voice sounded steady, but I could hear exhaustion underneath it. I am heading home now, he said. She agreed. To meet. I glanced at the clock. Do you want me there? There was a pause. Yes, he answered. I think I do. An hour later, I found myself sitting in the living room of the house where Ryan and Vanessa had built their life together. The Christmas tree still sparkled in the corner. Wrapped presents remained beneath the branches. Everything looked normal. Yet the atmosphere felt completely different from the night before. Vanessa sat across from us on the sofa. Her posture was perfect. Her expression calm. If someone had walked into the room without knowing the situation, they might have assumed we were discussing holiday plans. Ryan placed the folder on the coffee table. Neither of them touched it at first. Finally, Vanessa folded her hands and spoke. I know how this looks. Ryan stared at her. Then explain it. She took a slow breath. The transfers were redirected, yes. But it was never meant to hurt anyone. I felt my stomach tighten. Not a denial. Not confusion. An admission. Ryan seemed to notice the same thing. You changed the account? He asked quietly. Vanessa lowered her eyes. At first, I intended to fix it. Ryan gave a short, humorless laugh. 4 years is a long time to fix something. The room fell silent again. Vanessa looked toward the window. The first year was difficult financially, she said. There were expenses, investments, opportunities. Ryan immediately shook his head. We were not struggling. Not struggling, she replied, but building something bigger. I watched the conversation unfold and felt a strange sadness settle over me. It was not really about money anymore. It was about choices. Every month, she had made the same choice. Every time Ryan asked about me, she had made another choice. Every explanation, every omission, every redirected conversation. Ryan opened the folder and removed several documents. Then explained these notes. He slid them across the table. Vanessa's confidence visibly weakened. What notes? The notes claiming my mother requested privacy. The notes claiming she thanked me for the arrangement. Vanessa did not answer. Ryan's voice became firmer. Did she ever say any of those things? Another silence. Longer this time. Finally, Vanessa whispered, "No." Hearing that single word affected me more than I expected. For years I had questioned my own memory. Wondered if I had forgotten conversations. Wondered if I was becoming less sharp with age. Now I learned that many of those doubts had never belonged to me at all. They had been planted by someone else's deception. Ryan leaned back slowly. The disappointment on his face was impossible to miss. What else? He asked. Vanessa looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, what else have you hidden? The question hung in the air. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Vanessa's expression changed completely. The confidence disappeared. The rehearsed explanations vanished. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. She glanced toward the staircase, then toward the dining room, as if searching for an escape that did not exist. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. There is something else you need to see. Vanessa stood up slowly and walked toward the home office near the back of the house. Ryan and I exchanged a glance before following her. The office was immaculate. Shelves lined the walls. Framed certificates hung neatly above a polished desk. It looked like the kind of room where every detail had been carefully planned. Vanessa opened a drawer and removed a small lockbox. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered the combination. For the first time since this nightmare began, she no longer seemed interested in defending herself. She looked tired, defeated. The lock clicked open. Vanessa removed a stack of folders and placed them on the desk. Ryan stepped forward first. What is this? He asked. Vanessa lowered her eyes. Everything. Ryan opened the top folder. His expression changed immediately. There were copies of correspondence, financial records, account transfers, and authorization forms. Some documents contained notes in Vanessa's handwriting. Others showed communications she had never shared with either of us. As Ryan continued turning pages, the room became completely silent. I moved closer and looked over his shoulder. Several letters had been addressed to me over the years. Birthday messages, holiday gifts, invitations to company events. Some had never reached me. Others included checks or vouchers that had been redirected elsewhere. My chest tightened. You kept these? I asked quietly. Vanessa nodded. Yes. Why? She stared at the floor. Because it became easier to continue than to admit what I had already done. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. You isolated her. Vanessa immediately shook her head. That was never my intention. Then what was? Ryan asked. His voice was calm, but the disappointment behind it filled the room. Vanessa sat down heavily in a chair. At first, I told myself I was protecting our future. Every month I thought I would put everything back. Then another opportunity came along. Another investment. Another expense. She looked toward me. After a while, admitting the truth felt impossible. I listened quietly. The explanation did not erase what happened. Yet I could hear something different now. Not excuses. Regret. Genuine regret. Ryan continued reviewing the files. Then he suddenly stopped. One particular document had caught his attention. He read it twice before looking up. What is this? Vanessa's face went pale. Ryan handed me the paper. It was a trust document. My name appeared at the top. Beneath it were details of a separate fund established by Ryan's late father before his passing. I stared at the page in disbelief. I have never seen this before. Ryan looked equally stunned. Neither have I. Vanessa covered her face briefly. I found it years ago. The room seemed to tilt slightly around me. Another hidden secret. Another piece of the puzzle. According to the document, the trust contained funds specifically intended to support me during retirement. It was not enormous, but it would have changed everything. Medical bills, housing costs, daily expenses. Years of unnecessary struggle flashed through my mind. Ryan slowly lowered the paper. You knew about this? Vanessa nodded. Tears filled her eyes. Yes. And you never told either of us? She could not answer. The silence was answer enough. Ryan looked away and stared out the office window. Snow continued falling outside, covering the backyard in a fresh layer of white. Everything beyond the glass looked peaceful. Inside the room, decades of trust were unraveling one document at a time. Then Ryan noticed something attached to the back of the trust paperwork. It was a handwritten letter. His father's signature appeared at the bottom. Ryan's hands shook as he unfolded the page and began to read. Ryan read the letter slowly. His father's handwriting was unmistakable. Every line carried the steady confidence I remembered so well. The letter explained why the trust had been created. It was never meant to make me wealthy. It was meant to make sure I would never have to worry. His final wish was simple. He wanted me to live comfortably, maintain my independence, and enjoy the years we had worked so hard to build together. As Ryan reached the last page, his voice grew quieter. By the time he finished, nobody spoke for several moments. The room felt heavy with everything that had been lost. Not just money, time, trust, opportunities that could never be recovered. Ryan carefully folded the letter and placed it back on the desk. Then he looked directly at Vanessa. There was no anger in his expression anymore. Somehow that made the moment even more serious. I think I finally understand, he said quietly. Vanessa lowered her head. Tears slid down her cheeks. I never wanted it to become this. Ryan nodded slowly. But it did. Outside, the snow continued falling. Inside, the truth had finally reached the surface. There was nothing left to hide. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Attorneys reviewed the records. Financial accounts were corrected. The trust was transferred properly. The missing payments were documented and addressed. The process took time, but for the first time in years, everything was transparent. Every statement, every account, every conversation. Ryan insisted on handling it personally. He no longer delegated family matters to anyone else. One afternoon in early spring, he came to my apartment carrying a folder and a small box. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as he sat across from me at the same table where this entire journey had truly begun. Everything is finished, he said. I opened the folder. The trust had been restored. New accounts had been established directly in my name. Every document was clear and straightforward. No intermediaries. No confusion. No hidden notes. Then Ryan pushed the small box toward me. Inside was a set of house keys. I looked at him in surprise. What is this? He smiled for the first time in months. A place nearby. Small. Comfortable. Exactly the kind of home Dad would have wanted for you. My eyes filled with tears. Not because of the house. Not because of the money. Because for the first time in a very long while, I felt seen. Truly seen. A few days later, Ryan and I visited the property together. It was not enormous. It did not need to be. There was a front porch, a bright kitchen, and a small garden space where I could grow flowers. As we stood in the backyard, Ryan looked at me and quietly said, I spent 4 years believing I was helping you. You spent 4 years believing you were protecting me from your problems. We both lost something because neither of us asked enough questions. I nodded. He was right. The greatest lesson was not about money. It was about connection, about paying attention, about never assuming someone else is handling the relationships that matter most. As for Vanessa, she eventually accepted responsibility for her choices. The consequences were significant, but they were also necessary. Trust cannot be rebuilt through promises alone. It requires honesty, accountability, and time. Whether that trust could ever fully return was a question only the future could answer. Months later, I sat on my new porch watching the sunset paint the sky shades of gold and orange. A gentle breeze moved through the garden. Ryan had just left after helping me plant roses along the fence. For the first time in years, life felt peaceful. Not perfect, but honest. I thought about that Christmas evening when a simple question changed everything. The money mattered, of course. The trust mattered too. But what mattered most was something far more valuable. The truth had finally brought a mother and her son back to each other. And in the end, that was worth more than any account balance could ever hold.